Hello, I'm Bruce Zimmerman, and this is the Open Line Garden Show podcast for this week. Now, we're talking about designing your garden, and we've talked about color and selection and variegation and blending. In other words, mingling colors, etc. But what we haven't talked about, and because we've sort of gone to the softer, easier plant material, but you haven't really been told about the bones of a garden. Now, bones of a garden are the ones that hold the whole garden together. Now, the bones of a garden are usually a particular plant or color, or you can go and use same color but different plants. But most people will go and they will spot plant material or rocks or water features or statuary throughout the garden. This ties the garden together. Depending on size is the location in the garden. In other words, if you're using very dwarf hostas, they're up at the front. If you're using very dwarf conifers, evergreens, they're up front. But if you've got a medium-sized one, you're going farther back. If you've got taller ones, you might be down in the corners. But you want to make sure that what you use for bones can be carried throughout that whole area. So let's say the whole back area, let's say your back fence. That whole area is one. Now you can use different bones to the right on the side fence or on the left side of the backyard on the left. And they can be separate types of gardens and have different features. Because you're usually sitting and viewing one area or the other. So, what about rocks? The rocks could be plain rocks. The rocks could be part of a dry riverbed, which means you put a liner down, you put gravel in, you go and you put some larger rocks in through, and then maybe plant sedums or symphomerans, etc. Any of the things like dragon's blood. How's that? Around and through the rocks, you might even be able to get away with some heathers, depending on exposure, where you live, etc. But heathers are generally a much more challenging plant than most people would like to do. So, what you want to do is actually go and pick and choose your bones. And sometimes the bones can be anything. I have some bones in my garden, and I use different things, but right now I'm using old clay pots. They're all different kinds. They stack on top of each other. Why? Because the plant material that's in front of them covers up the bottom one, but not the top one. And then later on, late in the season, sometimes in one area, it's hard to see either one of those clay pots. These are not little clay pots. These are not huge clay pots. These are pots that are basically sized to the size, the plant material, and the garden. So they can be done. And, I mean, let's be honest, I'm never going to use them. A lot of them are just cracked pots. Pots that have been kicking around forever. Some of them have great character. Some of them are a strawberry urn. It's got a couple of broken strawberry cups. So you turn them to the back, leave the good ones to the front, and you leave it there. That's it. And sometimes I put some plants in there. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes, you know the old saying there. But in any case, I really think that you can do that. You can do that with a similar or characteristic garden ornament. Now, let's be honest. Everybody's garden ornament is an eyesore, because there's no way a lot of people will want pink flamingos or a family of plastic ducks going across their lawn or whatever. In my case, no gnomes. No gnomes. Okay? But I can go and I can take the old spike you put in the ground to put your beer can in so that you don't have to have a table. You can sit anywhere, do anything. I said beer, could be pop, whatever. Okay? Never use them. So, what do? Outdoor silver balls. Like you see in the Christmas arrangements. Cluster them, change them, move them. They can go anywhere in the garden, and you can have fun with them. So you can do that, and you can still go and have them as a feature in the garden, not necessarily a bone. So these are not really bones, but they might be a nice add-on feature. Adds interest. Something that you're going to find you're going to want to do without being gaudy and awful, like gnomes. No gnomes, please. Now all the gnome manufacturers don't like me. But anyways, the other thing you can do is, and we talked a little bit about garden sheds, you can actually use a garden shed. And I have been on a garden tour where the man decided he wanted a garden shed. Well, actually his wife did, so that was it. So at the top of a bank, at the back corner of the yard, he built a designer garden shed. Now, the garden shed was first used for the kids. Then it was used for him to go and put things in, and tools and, garden tools and things like that. And now, there's nothing in there. He's not using it. It just looks good. He even put a porch on it with a railing. I mean, we're talking high-end here, okay? And then he decided he was going to build a waterfall from it. No problem, because it's sitting up on a higher level. That's fine. His wife says, "Now how do I get to it? My shed, you built a waterfall there." Okay, so he builds a pathway up to the back of the shed and makes his wife walk all the way up around the back of the shed, come back down the front, and has to sort of saddle up to get up the front stairs of the garden shed. I don't know what's going on there, but I would say there was a plan there. So when she finally complained, he went and put another pathway down, going down the opposite way. But you can't see it, because the plant material that it goes down through is bigger and higher, and you can't see it. But she can, when she's up there, she knows where it comes out, she knows where it goes up at the top and where she can go down the front, and it brings her to the center of the yard. She's happy. So, to each his own. Now, this is not like concrete steps. These can be stepping stones, these can be natural stones, these can be sidewalk slabs. It depends on how you blend them in. If you have hard, straight lines in a pathway, very often, and this comes right out of England and later designers from the 80s and even 90s, where you're using creepers to soften that straight line. So they're in the garden, but they creep out so that the walkway is not necessarily straight. You have to walk crooked. You don't want to be able, and I've seen a few of these, you don't want to be drunk trying to get up this pathway. Or maybe sometimes it helps if you're weaving. Don't know. It depends on your perspective, I guess. But that's how you can soften hard existing walkways. And that's important. And also look for heights for each step. Width of each step. You want lots of room. And in some places where it's going to be very steep, they may be in shade, which means they can be slippery. They might get moss or other things growing on them. You want some railings. The railings have to fit in to the design of the garden. And now, that is one of the bigger challenges of a garden right there. Because most of them don't look like they belong in a garden. They look like they belong in the mall. So, go ahead and do this. And then blend in, through all of this, containers. And the containers can either be with hardy plant material or a combination of spillers and annuals and hard material that stick up and other things. Think of each one as being creative and different. And that's important. So you've got some walkways to work with. You've got some plant material to work with. You know that you're going to have to put some bones in there, whether they're shrubs, evergreens. But evergreens really look really good because what happens is this. They're there in the wintertime. I like this one. But, again, you know me, I like variegated. So, am I going to put in variegated yucca like Bright Edge or Golden Sword? No. Color Guard. Because in the fall, the center part gets this sort of apricot tinge into it. Much more interesting. So, do these things, and this is all planning. Now, when I was on a garden tour in Buffalo a number of years ago, I went into a garden where it was a front garden that commingled, took over the boulevard, there was the sidewalk, and then there was, the whole front yard was plant material, and stepping stones into the front porch and things like that. But she was not always happy. She was always changing, always reviewing. So what did she do? She found a plant material that she really liked, and she bought it in a pot. What she did was she went and she would place this plant in different parts of the garden. She's not going to plant it. She's just going to put it there, see how well it does, see how it looks through the season, and make sure it's watered and fed and cared for. And let's put it this way. 6 inches that way. No, that way. No, I really like it over there. And she would do this for the entire front garden. Think of a garden 50 feet across, and the whole front would be 50 feet deep, all the way to the curb, right across the boulevard, so the only people walking by are on the sidewalk. And she would go and keep changing it, putting the plants in, until she was happy with where it was going to be. Trust me, the garden was glorious. And it really was. Remember, you can soften the plants with edges, but you can also put a hard edge in. A lot of people, and I've been told this, they do not like hostas in a straight line. Well, hostas in a straight line can, with the right hosta, can actually give you a very effective lengthening of a walkway to a focal feature. Think of this. Going to a gate, and the gate is interesting. Maybe there's a fountain with a lion head fountain on the side, and that is just can keep circulating. Why not? But below it, it's a whole row of hostas. Could be a white garden. Could be all blue, etc. So be creative with it. Make sure that it's a safe garden. Make sure that the plant material is suitable for the area. Buy good quality plants and enjoy changing, because I know a lot of us go, change is difficult, but that's just the way it is. And if you go native, remember, if it doesn't grow in your area and it's native plant material and it doesn't work and it doesn't survive, it's the wrong plant in the wrong place. And always make sure you start with the best soils. To make your home the best, the foundation is the soil, and the plant material will always be your friend. I'm Bruce Zimmerman. This is the Open Line Garden Show podcast for this week.